In today's show, a sleepy day one of NBA free agency, but we're still reheating some Jeremy Grant rumors. Plus, Dalano Banton's back. Welcome to Locked On Blazers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Trailblazers, your daily Portland Trailblazers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, world? It's your past first point guard and Trailblazers reporter, Mike Richmond. You're listening to another episode of Locked On Blazers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get podcasts and also on YouTube. Thanks for making this show your first listen, coming at you each and every weekday, Monday through Friday. So make it a part of your daily routine. Make it your first listen and tell your friends to do the same. As Locked On Blazers, your team every day. In today's show, a sleepy day one of NBA free agency. Everybody's hiding and trying not to tamper. Plus, maybe the CBA wanted it to be this way. We'll talk about the latest rumors, including a little bit of Jeremy Grant, a reheated, a week later rumor on Jeremy Grant's, the Lakers' interest in Jeremy Grant. Plus, I think the West got a little bit worse, which is good news if you're good news if you're a fan of a team that didn't get a little bit worse. But I think a couple teams in the West got worse. We'll talk about some moves that happened on day one of free agency. And then the Blazers, late last week, decided to exercise the team option on Delano Banton. He's back for now. We'll talk about the implications of that moving forward as it all pertains to NBA free agency. Let's get into it. So the latest, the sort of biggest, juiciest, this isn't even that big or that juicy, but there is some reporting from Anthony Irwin, who writes for LakersDaily.com, former host of Locked On Lakers right here on this network, and also host the Lakers Lounge. A Lakers reporter, Anthony Irwin, reported that the Lakers and Blazers have been in contact about Jeremy Grant. Okay. In contact is hard to know the sort of levels of it, because, like, does in contact mean, like, hello, yes, is Jeremy Grant available available for a trade? He is, potentially, depending on the price. Okay, call you back. Like, is that type of thing? But this does follow a report from Yahoo Sports last week, Jake Fisher of Yahoo Sports last week, that said that the Lakers were known to have interest in Jeremy Grant. It totally makes sense that the Blazers would be willing to shop Jeremy Grant. They should. I don't know if they have to trade him, but they absolutely should listen to every trade offer possible and then figure out if they want to bring him back. He's helpful to a good team. I think he's probably more helpful to a good team than he is to a bad team, because of his skill set. So, like, yeah, they should absolutely try to figure that out. Obviously, maybe not obvious to you, but an important connection here is that Jeremy Grant is represented by Clutch Sports, and that is Rich Paul, LeBron James' childhood friend and current representation, and the team and an agency that is believed to have a great deal of influence in some of the Lakers' transactions. We'll put it like that. So, you know, I'm not like questioning the reporting. I bet they have talked. If two independent reporters are saying, hey, the Lakers are interested, and now another reporter is saying, hey, they've talked as we head into free agency. Yeah, that makes sense. It's just, and I mentioned this on the show when I talked about the rumors in the past. It's like a deal for Jeremy Grant and between the Lakers and the Blazers, if it's a straight, two-team swap, like a straightforward trade, the math is pretty easy to get there, right? Gabe Vincent's money and Rui Hachimura's money make it easy. If you don't want to include Rui Hachimura, you can include Jared Vanderbilt, but you got to send some other stuff back, and then it does get into the weeds a little bit, like are the Blazers going to trade Chris Murray or whatever, but just for like a straight swap, a very, very simple swap, Gabe Vincent and Rui Hachimura. And then the Lakers have a first to trade. But probably those two guys and one first wouldn't be the Blazers' first choice. Like, it wouldn't be like, okay, that's not a great package for Jeremy Grant. I don't know. Like, this isn't like super, super appealing if you're the Blazers, and like, maybe just move forward with Jeremy Grant and see what else you get, right? But the Lakers have another tradable draft pick. They could send two firsts out, but two firsts, like two unprotected firsts specifically for Jeremy Grant, is probably too rich. It's like the first version of the deal is like not enough, and the second version of the deal is probably too much from the Lakers' perspective. Like, not enough for the Portland, then too much for the Blazers. It's like, or too much for the Lakers. It's like, you'd have to the Lakers would have to be pretty motivated to get that done, or they'd have to find some bunch of second round picks to throw in there, or some other sweeteners along the way. Those of you dreaming for Dalton Connect, I doubt it. Maybe, but I strongly doubt it. Like, it's just like you don't. Anything could happen, but teams typically don't trade players they immediately draft for the quality of player that Jeremy Grant is. But we'll see. So, like, I think this has like the authority in the way that it's just like, if two different independent reporters report it, there's probably some truth to it. Whether it actually gets done is a ways away. And Anthony Irwin of Lakers Lounge and LakersDaily.com reports that the Lakers are in some ways in a holding pattern with what happens with Klay Thompson. According to Mark Stein of the Stein Line, the Lakers are among the two teams heavily pursuing Klay Thompson. It is believed, as we see it here on day one of free agency, that Klay Thompson is gone. His Warriors career is over, and what the Warriors are going to do is be creative in his exit so they can get something for him. Saying, if you want to leave, that's cool. Let's find you a place where we can work out a sign and trade, and they'll take back some parts from that team, from the team that he agrees to or reaches an agreement with. And make it happen. Sign and trades have to be okayed by Klay Thompson. They can't just because he's a free agent, he can't just get traded to anywhere. He gets to pick, and then the Lakers the Warriors and that team will figure it out. So the Lakers and the Mavs are the teams that are reportedly, according to Mark Stein, and I believe Adrian Wojnarowski echoed this reporting, but Stein had it a little more clear, that like, those are the two teams at the top of the pursuit, and the Lakers are probably keeping their trade chips dry because they would rather Klay Thompson. At least that's what the reports seem like. Whether Klay Thompson next season is likely to be an unprotected, let's call it unprotected for now, but like an unprotected first round pick better than Jeremy Grant, I don't know. Klay Thompson has moments when he looks like the Hall of Famer that he is, and then he has moments where he looks older. He looks like someone who's played a lot of basketball and has a lot of 13 seasons on him and has dealt with some serious injuries. I don't know that I would prioritize that, but they're definitely different players. And Klay has that championship cachet and maybe more like defensive chops and resume type of thing. And so everyone's allowed to pursue who they like, but I think that is sort of one of the things that gets in the way. The Lakers are saying, okay, what's the backup option? And is Jeremy Grant their backup option for Klay Thompson? And I kind of think that's my read on this. And I've mentioned this in previous shows, so I'm repeating myself. And there's a reward for being an everyday listener, is that you've kind of heard me walk through this logic before, is that maybe when teams, if the teams that are pursuing the Klay Thompsons and particularly Paul Georges of the world, maybe they're like, if they strike out, and it seems like Paul George is almost certainly going to be a Sixer, so they were the team that I was kind of saying, like, what if the Sixers strike out? But the teams that finish second in the running, so whether that is Dallas or the Lakers, like maybe they say, we still need to get better. What does a Jeremy Grant deal look like? And they pivot. So I think I wouldn't bank on this reporting, hey, they've talked, being like deeply meaningful. And I'm not selling you on deeply meaningful. I'm selling you on like, it seems to follow the logic that has been out there for a little bit from other independent reporters, and why it hasn't happened, quote unquote, is because there's more dominoes, and Jeremy Grant is probably not a top line first option for any of the really good teams that are pursuing him, and the bad teams wouldn't want to pursue that type of contract. Jeremy Grant can help a good team. I think he can. It was kind of a sleepy first day of free agency. I'm recording this about 9:30 p.m. on Sunday evening. So if stuff does happen, and I'll check the old social media before I get into it, I'll talk about it on the show as a live reaction. But I think for the most part, we saw like a relatively sleepy free agency because, sleepy opening day of free agency because, one, there's a lot of speculation that teams don't want to get hit with tampering. We've had teams lose draft picks for tampering, and second round picks are really valuable, especially for expensive teams. They don't want to lose draft picks in the future. They want to look like it. Agents don't want to look like they've screwed things up. Like, just wait. And the new CBA is just making it harder to put trades together. Just ask the Clippers, who are already crying about it. Let's talk about the sleepy first day of free agency, which West teams got worse, and how that could shake out the big picture across the NBA. Join me in that second segment, won't ya? First, though, I want to tell you that today's show is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. It's also the sportsbook that's rewarding you during the slow times. Listen, things are slowing down in the summer. We don't have NBA games every single day. We still got WNBA games many days out of the week, and you got Major League Baseball all freaking week long. Thursdays and Mondays are a little bit light, but otherwise, there's a lot of baseball games out there. But maybe if you're a listener to this show, your favorite sport has kind of gone into hibernation for a bit. But that doesn't matter, because FanDuel's still making it fun to get on the action all summer long, hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right, something for everyone all summer long. A boost or a bonus every day. So head on over to FanDuel.com/lockedon and start making the most of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. All right. Sleepy first day of NBA free agency. I was looking for fireworks. Also, why are they doing it on a Sunday afternoon? Couldn't they have either just made this happen on July 1st? I guess it's like the calendar is the calendar. Sunday afternoon was a weird time for this to happen. 3 p.m. on a Sunday afternoon in Portland, a weird time for this to happen. I will say this. Today, finally, after many, many moons, the Blazers are finally done paying Andrew Nicholson off the books, because we're into a new league year. Congratulations. He was making a fine bit of cash. Nicholson, of course, was part of the Allen Crabbe trade. The Blazers gave Allen Crabbe this fat contract in 2016, and then they matched a $75 million offer sheet from the Brooklyn Nets, and then they end up trading him to the Nets the following summer, and then they took back Andrew Nicholson's money in the summer of 2017, but he never played for them, and they stretched him and waived him for 7 seasons, and it's finally off the books. Congratulations, we made it. Now it's just dead money for Aditi Luzada and Eric Bledsoe, but not the $3 million for Nicholson. So congratulations, we made it. But I think the sort of the big news from the first day of free agency, other than the sort of the light JG stuff we led with, is that teams in the West are getting worse. Playoff level teams in the West are getting a little bit worse. The Golden State Warriors are worse. They lost Chris Paul. They extended he had a partially guaranteed contract. They extended the date over through the weekend to see if they could find a trade for him. They could not find a trade for him. They ended up just, waiving him before his contract became fully guaranteed. He signs with the Spurs. Interesting little trade. I like it. CP's best work probably in recent years has been breathing life into young teams. OKC, and then making the Suns kind of just showing up and being like, okay, Phoenix, you can win your championship level good now. Welcome. Devin Booker had a lot to do with that, but CP's arrival certainly changed things. And I think adding, even at 40 years old, 39 years old, however old he is, adding him to the Spurs it's fun. I think it's intriguing. But the Warriors are worse for it because they didn't get anything out of it, right? It's not like CP was really good, but it's like nothing on the back end is worse. No player is probably worse than what Paul is. And they're going to lose Klay Thompson. It sounds like it's over. It sounds like that relationship is done after more than a decade and 4 championships. Klay Thompson moving on. It's just which team in the West are they going to trade him to and what are they going to get back? So they might not be way, way, way worse, but I think they're going to be worse. That's a team that got worse as Thompson is likely to make his decision in the coming days. The Clippers got worse. They're going to lose Paul George. I think it's this weird... It seems like, based on the reporting, everyone in the world knows that Paul George is going to agree to sign with the Philadelphia 76ers sometime on Monday or late Sunday night, depending on... but sounds like, Monday he's going to decide, July 1st, he's going to decide to go there. And everybody knows it, but we're reporting maybe the leading candidate, as opposed to some sort of more strong worded things. But the Clippers are worse because of that. So apparently the breakdown was basically Paul George wanted 4-year contract. The Clippers had just given Kawhi Leonard a 3-year contract, and they wanted Paul George to line up with Kawhi. They didn't want to give him that extra year, and it ended up being, the end of that partnership after probably the best run in Clippers history, but still certainly short of their goals, and a lot of coming up short in the playoffs and coming up injured in the playoffs. On his way out, the Clippers, I've never seen this. I don't recall seeing this. Maybe you do. And if you do, lockedonblazerspod@gmail.com or post a comment below in the YouTube channel. On day one of free agency, before anything has been agreed, the Clippers released a statement, like a formal press release, saying that Paul George had informed them he's going to sign with another team and the relationship is over. And then the last paragraph complains about the new CBA and how hard it was for them to work an equitable trade for the franchise and all of these things, like literally whining about the second apron rules. First of all, hilarious. Second of all, maybe they're right. Maybe the Clippers are right. Maybe the new CBA and has effectively given us a hard cap with a hard salary cap in the NBA, which makes player movement, particularly for massive contracts, a little bit trickier because it restricts who can trade what and all those things, and constructing trades for really expensive teams becomes hard. Maybe there's going to be teams will probably figure it out and things will change, but maybe there's going to be less player movement, which fine, I don't care in the grand scheme of things. But the league basically the league's popularity is basically built off transactions. That's a big part of why people like the NBA is because of trades. If the CBA created a situation where there's less summertime movement, whoops, it's not going to make the games matter more. They're still just going to talk about LeBron on ESPN all the time. So listen to the Locked On Podcast Network. Get your local dose when you need it. But I think it'll be curious to see how teams, both the rest of this free agency, because we're 8 hours into it as I'm recording this, not quite 7 as I'm recording this, but we're just maybe they'll figure it out, or maybe in the future teams will have a better sense of navigating. But I'd say night one's a little bit sleepy. So the Warriors get worse, the Clippers get worse, and they cry about it. And then Denver got worse. They lose KCP. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope agreed to a 2-year plus with a player option for a year 3 with the Orlando Magic. Denver's worse because of that. They're worse. They're worse off. Undeniable. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope is a winner. He's a dude who plays every game he's available in. I think something well over 90% of the available games. He's missed so few over the past 5 seasons. And everywhere he goes, they win. They win. They won in LA with him. In Denver, they won with him. He's a dude who helps you win basketball games. I really like him. Shout out to the Wizards. I think he's a really useful role player. And to me, if you're a Blazer fan, this is a curious one. Does this take the Magic out of the running for Anthony Simons? My answer to that question is it doesn't have to. It might, but it does not have to. After the trade, they still have north of $25 million in cap space, with a path to getting $30 million in cap space if they renounce the rights to free agents Joe Ingles and Mo Wagner. They don't have to do that, though. They could work out some sort of construction of a deal that allows them to keep those vets if they want, if the Magic wanted to trade for Anthony Simons. But I'll say this, a couple things. One, the Magic clearly chose identity over sort of anything else. KCP is a dogged defender, right? He gets after it on defense, and that has been their identity. They didn't choose, he's a 2 guard. They're going to still, Jalen Suggs is a nominal point guard with a bunch of primary creation responsibilities given to Franz Wagner and Paolo Banchero. Fine, right? But they didn't choose a true point guardy type guy, ball handler type guy. They chose a shooter, and KCP can definitely, as a catch and shoot shooter, he's definitely that. He doesn't have a lot of individual offense, but he does that and he defends. They chose identity. They said, this guy fits what we want to do. He fits the plan. He's easy to put in there. And I don't know that the Magic are interested in Anthony Simons. That's number 2 here. It's they chose someone who fits their identity, and 2 is Ant doesn't. He's not a good defensive player. Certainly they could hide him, and they play Cole Anthony and all these things. Ant would be a pretty seamless fit, and I think we all think that. But that's the thing, we think that. Media types, people with podcasts, fans of the team, people with opinions on the internet, we all seem to tend to believe that Anthony Simons is a very natural fit in Orlando, and I think he is, right? For obvious reasons, his defensive deficiencies would be covered up. He has some ball handling skills that would help them to go get a bucket, and he's a good off ball player. His strengths would be maximized and his weaknesses would be hidden a little bit. And I think Ant fits, but do they want him? Here's the thing. They have a path to get him still. I don't think this takes him off the board entirely, but it does seem to suggest that they went another direction with their answering, hey, what do we need at guard type of thing. I don't think Orlando's out, but if you were kind of hoping, if you're a Blazer fan, that they'd strike out on everybody. KCP would stay in Denver. Klay Thompson would end up in one of the Western Conference contenders. Paul George, who was like rumored to go there, would end up in Philly. And it's like, then Magic would kind of have their hand would be forced a little bit, right? It's like, okay, we got to end up somewhere that it makes sense for us to improve this roster. We got to land with something from this summer that helps us go in the direction we want to go. And then they would come a calling on Ant. They still certainly could. I don't think it takes it off the board entirely. I don't think like their financial situation, and they didn't give up anything to get Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. Obviously it's more appealing for a team to use cap space to sign players than to trade, often than to make trades into cap space, because if trades, you have to send out stuff. And the Blazers, would definitely want stuff. They would want stuff in return for Ant. They'd want good stuff, right? They'd want picks and probably a young player if they could make it happen. That seems to be their MO. See Denny Avia. So like it is. I would say that's maybe mildly bad news if you're rooting for the Anthony Simons-Orlando swap to finally happen, but I don't think it's done. The Blazers have done one thing in free agency. They haven't been very active in July's the last couple of years. They've mostly reacted to things they have to react to. When deadlines force their hand, they've done things, and a deadline forced their hand last week, and they did something. Delano Banton's coming back. Let's talk about what that means to close the show. Join me in that final segment, won't you? Still a pass first point guard. I'm still Mike Richmond. You are still listening to Locked On Blazers. Delano Banton back in action, baby. The Blazers last week exercised, I believe on Friday, exercised the team option on Delano Banton's contract for the 2024-2025 season. Here's the thing. It's a very small partial guarantee. According to Keith Smith of SpotTrack.com, the number is just $217,000. $217,533 if you want to get into it. My math suggests that's something like just shy of 10% of his contract, 9.9% of his contract. So he gets a very small percentage of his contract guaranteed by getting it picked up, and then half of it becomes guaranteed if he's on the roster on opening night. So if Banton makes the team out of training camp, he gets half his money, and then it's like all those non-guaranteed dates, they go into January, and anyone on the roster for any non-guaranteed contract, not just Delano. So that's just the last date it can be. It's like, I believe it's January 10th this year, or next in 2025, and it's this season rather. And then his contract will become fully guaranteed. So there's very little risk in the Blazers bringing him back, and risk but I mean there's very little financial punishment. $200,000. The Blazers are still $4 million below the tax line. They can still make their wiggle room, and if they do need to waive Banton at any point in the future, that's all they literally until opening night of the season, they just owe him that $200,000, and then they can make their decision. So this was a no-brainer because you exercise the option, and you don't lose Banton if you want to keep him, and then it allows you to kind of figure out what his future might be and what it looks like. And I think that's the question here. What does the roster look like? Because that to me would determine Banton's situation. Fate, I think, is maybe too intense of a word. Currently, as the Blazers stand, they are now up to 13 guaranteed contracts and 2 non-guarantees with Kamara and Toumani Kamara and Jabari Walker, effectively in a completely full roster, because they're not going to just let those guys walk. There's a world in which they have to walk with other big moves, but Toumani would be really bizarre. Jabari Walker, it's very, very, very unlikely. I've used non-zero. I'll use it again here. A non-zero chance, but very, very, very unlikely. So basically the full roster. And if, as it stands, because they traded Malcolm Brogdon, they do need some guards. They do need a little bit of guard help. But Denny Avdia can handle the ball a little bit, and that's okay. And if you are going to play, Scoot and Shaden and Anthony Simons, there's not space in the rotation for Delano Banton, but that's not why you keep a 14th, 15th guy, whatever he is, 10th and below guy. You keep him because we need depth in case things don't work out, because not every player is healthy for every single game. I just don't know. So I think there's a world where the Blazers make trades, Anthony Simons gets traded or whatever, and you need Banton becomes your third guard and he's going to play every day. But that's like, we'll discuss that when we get there. So right now he's like useful insurance because I think you do need 4 guards at a minimum, and you probably need 5 dudes who can handle just for health reasons. So maybe they add that as a 2-way spot as a little bit of point guard insurance, or they just really say, Denny, hope you can handle it. And I think he can. I think it's intriguing to put the ball in his hands and see what he does a little bit. But Banton he's just so tricky, right? Like, I think he proved at the end of last season that he's probably an NBA player. It's just, he had a role so specific to the situation and the greenest of green lights that ever greened. Like, he basically was playing like the Luka Doncic role on the Blazers. Like, he had an incredible, like a massive usage rate. He just had a green light to do whatever he wants, carte blanche to do whatever he wants. And he went and got buckets. Like, he went and scored. He didn't score efficiently. He didn't shoot particularly well by the end of the season, had a 0 for 15 night to end his campaign, an NBA record setting 0 for 15 night. But even before that 0 for 15 night, he had cooled off a bunch from 3 after a hot shooting start. Like, he doesn't shoot well from 3. He's inefficient from 2, but he is like big, and he can handle the ball, and he can get himself to the free throw line. Shot more free throws last season than DeAndre Ayton. A small feat, but a feat nonetheless for how little he was around. Like, he has, like, I think he's an NBA player. It's just like, is he an NBA player on this team? He's not an off-ball guy because he can't be. He like kind of have to put the ball in his hands to get the most out of him. And he had, and he admitted this as much in public press settings. And Chauncey Billups said the same. It's like, he's just not playing a role that he's going to play in the future, so it's really hard to judge him. But I think the non-guarantee stuff it's easy. That's simple. Press the button and see what happens. There's a world where they need him. Like, there's a world where they just obviously need his help. It's just, I wouldn't, relying too much on him seems like an awkward fit, but he does allow for some, I've mentioned this a bunch in the past, like, he allows for some lineup versatility, because you can either play really big with him at point guard, or he's like tall enough. He's really skinny. He's not very good on defense, but he's tall enough that you can get away with playing him at one of the wing spots. So then you can have multiple ball handlers on the court. And so you can play like a lineup with him and Denny and Scoot. And it's like a lot of dudes who can dribble, and they don't have a lot of dudes who can dribble and pass like that. And throw Shaedon Sharpe in there too. He's developing as a ball handler and as a passer a little bit. Like he would give you some sort of versatility. It's just like, if the roster is basically this now, he's not going to play, and then he's like a weird fit as like they don't need like more non-shooting wings if they have all of their guard minutes tied up with the 3 young guards. But there's no harm, no foul. Like, you do this because it is the right procedural thing to do, and then you make the moves you're going to make all summer, and whatever that's a Jeremy Grant trade or an Anthony Simons trade or a trade, whether Rob Williams gets traded, whatever it might look like, whenever move you make, then you can decide on Banton, and it's like, you pay him $200,000 for his troubles. You pay him 10% of his minimum contract for his troubles. It's no brainer. And like, I enjoyed the Delano Banton experience. I just think at the end of the year, it was pretty clear that like, he's just they didn't discover this incredible gem. They discovered like probably a dude who's an NBA guy with some warts, which is why he's like on a minimum contract. That's going to do it for day 1 of free agency. Let's do a real quick check of the old social media timeline to see if anything major has happened. It doesn't look like it. Jaden Hardy got his contract guaranteed. That's it. So that's day 1 of free agency. Pretty sleepy day 1. Tomorrow's show. You're listening to Monday, July 1st show. On Tuesday, July 2nd. A deep dive on Donovan Clingan. He was introduced over the weekend at his introductory press conference on Saturday. A deep dive on his day 1 fit, his fit with DeAndre Ayton, and why I think the Blazers absolutely have to try out the 2 Towers lineup, even if I'm skeptical of its success. That's tomorrow's show. It's what we do 5 days a week, wherever you get podcasts, and also on YouTube. Come back, because we will do more shows this week. Everything that happens in free agency, what you need to know, right here on this very program. Free on all platforms, also on YouTube. Tell your friends about the program. I appreciate you listening. I will talk to you soon.